Alrighty, everyone. I have had some requests to do the feminist theory. Now, I'm gonna be honest with everybody because I've always been honest. When I told you I didn't study for something, I didn't study for it. I did not study the feminist theory. When it came time for me when I was studying for my exam, the feminist theory was the least of my worries. I hadn't heard anybody talking about the feminist theory being on the exam. I can't remember if Diane Gerhardt was even big on the feminist theory. So I didn't study it. So I took a week to study the feminist theory so that I could find the best way to teach it to each and every one of you, and kind of like just made it so that it's much smaller, because the feminist theory, it's not small. It is huge. The amount of research on the feminist theory will blow you away. Okay? But I kind of like drawn it in, trying to find a way to just be like, okay, is a lot of this information really needed? But we'll get the core concepts of it, the key terms of it, and the things that really matter the most. But the feminist theory, according to the research that I found, draws all the way back to 1700s. And I was like, wait, what? Sojourner Truth was part of the feminist theory? This is one of the foundational thinkers of the feminist theory. And this is what a lot of the study programs, I don't really think they dig this deep back in these times, because I think it started from like the Friedman era or whatever, in the Betty Hook era. But yeah, Sojourner Truth, she was part of it. There were a lot of different black women from the civil rights movement that also paved the way for the feminist theory. Angela Davis was actually one of them. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is amazing, the information. But yes, so these are some of your foundational thinkers from the feminist theory that a lot of the ones that we have today drew from, paved the way from these women. And then we have the first and second wave contributors. These are more of like your, okay, I can recognize some of these names. This is what's mentioned inside of some of the study programs that we use. And then a lot of these women, they wrote books for it. A lot of these women had different marches and walks and things, and wanted to make things more equal when it came to women. And I think that like in this type of era that we have right now, it's a lot of women that still do it, and they're still like drawing from things that happened years ago. And then like now, even in like 2017, the Me Too movement, I had no idea that that was part of the Feminist Act. I had heard about it, but really didn't dive too deep into it, really didn't pay attention to it. But yeah, and even now, back in the 50s and the 60s, there were still women that were paving the way for women having the equal rights and stuff that we have now, the same way as when it comes to men. And these were some of like the collective movements that they did, the Me Too movement. And that was something that was global when it came to like sexual harassment and assault. But I'm not going to dive too far into it. I can do a separate video on it, because I am thinking about like expanding a lot of the different topics that I want to talk about. And that was actually one of them that I wanted to touch on. But yes, a lot of black feminist women that were part of the movement. And I'm just like, this is a lot of information. And if you take time to look up each of those women named that were listed, a lot of more information is going to pop up when you do that. So we have the feminist theory overview, and it's simply just about understanding gender inequality, the systems of power, oppression, privilege, and how that operates in a society. Cultural norms, right? The institutions, interpersonal relationships, and how they may affect women, and how women are deemed to be looked at when it comes to a relationship. I don't care if it's just like your boyfriend and girlfriend. How are women like looked at when it comes to a relationship, and also when it comes to a marriage? What is the woman's role when it comes to a marriage? Where is the balance when it comes to that, right? So there's two different ways that we can look at the feminist theory and the overview, right? There's the ideas that the women have when it comes to hierarchy, when it comes to gender hierarchy, socialization, power, and the impact that it has when it comes to therapy, right? Especially when you have those that couple that's sitting in front of you. And that man seems to think that this is what he wants his woman to do. This is what she should be doing. She shouldn't be working. She should be at home doing this. Like, that was all changed, right? Sexism in a workplace, sexism even when it comes to careers, right? Different, or even a school that you want to go to. That was really touched on. And, and also it viewed like how we can eliminate that. How are we going to eliminate some of these sexist comments that people may make that is like damaging when it comes to women? That was also part of the feminist theory. Now, the core principles, gender, that's the main construct when it comes to the feminist theory. It's not something that it should be viewed as like it's just biological. It is shaped by so many different things, right? And sometimes when we see it, it's just like those traditional ways of viewing things. Like a woman should be wearing a dress and she shouldn't be wearing pants. That was also another thing that I read when it came to the feminist theory. And I'm like, oh my God, where did that come from? Like, who said that like a woman wears a dress and a man wears the pants? And then I think about, there's that saying that says, who wears the pants in a relationship? And I guess it was deemed to be that man to wear the pants in a relationship and not the woman. But okay, there's the power and inequality. How is power distributed equally between a man and a woman, right? When it comes to not just relationships, but all different kind of aspects. We're not just talking about a relationship. We're talking about work, right? We're talking about when it comes to a different, like a career that's supposed to be predominantly for a man, right? We're talking about all of those different aspects, not just a relationship. Intersectionality, that is the experiences that people have when it comes to oppression, race, class, sexuality, your age, your ability to even perform something, right? Now, and that's a whole nother area. And I also would like, and I'm taking notes on like videos that I want to, bring more to light and to discuss when it comes to marriage and family therapy. And I think that's also going to be one of them as well. I will not take a deep dive in this video. So, patriotic, like, who holds the primary power? Men holds, like, that's that. And I'm just like, wait, what? But in the feminist theory, we question that, right? Because why do we have to be in a system where the men has the power? Are men afraid when there is a woman that is in power? That's the feminist theory, and that's what they question. Like, who gave you the rights to be the head honcho or whatever? Those are questions that the feminist theory would question. The advocacy and social change. That I'm is like, just because you're a man, why do you get to make more money than me? We do the same job. Don't shoot the messenger. This is what I learned, and I had a good time actually learning about it. But okay, so these are some of your key terms. We have feminism. We talked about that. The movement to help the women, in order to advance in this world when there is prejudice that are against them. And then we have the feminist theory, where that is the ideas that the hierarchies, but I'm going to be more simple, the gender hierarchies, socialization, the power, it's at a where it's not where it should be, right? Where it's like the men has the power and the woman shouldn't just really have anything to say. Like, that's just point blank period. It's the sexist practices that occurs that makes, women at a disadvantage for certain things. It's very damaging to a woman, And then we have feminist therapy. That is the idea that the woman has problems, that are separate from societal problems. But also, therapy is going to be focusing on sharing the power between men and women. And there needs to be an acceptance of that, right? That's what feminist therapy is about. Then we have the historical oppression. that throughout time, certain groups of people had unfair disadvantages. Women was one of them. People of color, people from different minorities, religious groups. We have even people who are disabled. They were, or people that were deemed just like different from other people, they were held at a disadvantage. That is some of your historical oppressions. And there's also one of the historical oppressions, especially against women, was the right to vote. Women didn't have the rights to vote. We had to walk for them. We had to, we had to get that. We were told that we couldn't, because why do we need a voice, right? We don't need one, right? And then there's your egalitarian relationship. The therapist and the client shares the same power. There is no here and there. We share the same power. It's collaborative. And it needs to be treated, and it needs to just be treated as such, especially when it comes to a feminist therapist working with a couple where the man seems to think that this is what he says and this is what goes. No, we don't. A feminist therapist would never go for that. It's egalitarian. We are here. You are not here and I'm not here. We are both here, right? There's that empowerment that we talk about where I want you to reclaim what you need, right? Reclaim what's owed to you. Reclaim what you need in order to help you. Recognize that you are owed this, right? You also have power, not just power, but social power, where I have a voice. I am able to speak to each and every one of you and talk to each and every one of you because I am a woman. I am a woman of color and I have a voice, and I also have a story to tell. Let's just leave it at that. Social location, your position in society, whether if it's your race, your class, your gender, and that also has an impact on your lived experiences. It's for real, right? We need to also be increasing awareness when it comes to societal structures that we have, where it's looked at, where it's like a man can do this, but then when a woman does it, it becomes an issue. It's real. Like, it's real. And sometimes I also had that notion as well, that there are a lot of people who are afraid of a woman in power. And I will sometimes go along and say, there are people that are afraid of a Black woman in power. And I'm speaking for myself because I am a Black woman. And I do think that I do have power, right? But I raise awareness to that because even as a white woman, a Latino woman, an Asian woman, whatever the case may be, you have a voice. And the feminist era, the feminist theory, the feminist movement gave it to us. Okay? Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying. Alrighty. Again, these are some more of your key terms: the societal location, egalitarian relationship. We are collaborative with our clients. We are not higher; they are not lower, especially when it comes to the women. The historical oppression, again, certain women of certain people were at a disadvantage from other people. In the feminist theory, we're breaking those barriers, we're breaking those walls down in order to make it much more so that a woman does, understand and can reclaim, like, hey, I can do this right now. And then there's your intersectionality, it's the overlapping symptoms of oppression when it comes to the race, the gender, your class, your sexuality, whatever the case may be. Gender roles, these are your expectations of how an individual should behave based on their gender. That is when I had said again, where like the woman wears a dress and the man wears the pants. Like, who's wearing the pants in a relationship is supposed to be the man, right? The woman is meant to be the nurturer. The man is meant to be the what? The provider, the breadwinner, the one that's in power. That's gender roles. Your standard gender roles, so to speak. And then there's your double bind. When you're stuck in a no-win situation, women are going to be criticized regardless of the choice that they make. Now, again, I also looked into the whole thing about the abortion laws. If she keeps the baby, she's judged. If she gets the abortion, she's going to be judged. You're stuck, right? There's that no bind. There's that double bind situation, right? Again, that's their reproductive rights. Well, the women have the control over their bodies. But if a woman is saying she doesn't want the baby and a man is saying that he wants to keep the baby, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay. And then again, there are no direct interventions that a feminist therapist will use. But a feminist therapist will encourage self-disclosure because they want to be able to relate. They want to be able to show that equality, like, hey, I understand what you're going through. It's the empathy that that feminist therapist is going to be using. They also want to promote that empowerment. Hey, you can do this. You want that job, you go for it, right? It's that empowerment piece. The validation, normalizing the anger when it comes to different responses of oppression that someone might has dealt with. Again, it's like the historical oppression sometimes still exists presently today, and I can't say it enough. The feminist era, the feminist theory, the feminist movement gave us that option to have a voice, and we can speak up about it. Get it out there. Get your voice out there. Get people listening to you. Get people to understand. Gain aware. Raise awareness about it. These are the exam tips. Now, here's the thing. So I looked up a few questions regarding the feminist theory. And of course, like always, like any other theory, there are certain words that you're going to be looking for that's going to help you match to that theory, right? Cultural, gender, oppression, think feminist theory. Empowerment is what you're going to be looking for, and equality. Egalitarian are some of the answer responses that you will see for the feminist theory. Power imbalances, feminist theory. Egalitarian is collaborative. No one is here and no one is there. We are both collaborative, working with one another. The feminist theory does not diagnose. It's not about diagnosing these symptoms here. It's more about the relationships. It's more about the context behind it. It's more about the imbalances that might be occurring and how can we get those balances back. Empowerment, again, speaking up for yourself, right? The traditional gender roles, right? We need to be exploring the social and the cultural influences or the empowerment that your client actually needs, okay? Now, it's not really phases of therapy for the feminist theory, just like it's not really any for collaborative therapy. It's more like it's collaborative and it's just an ongoing process. So it's going to be more like dialogue. But within that dialogue, you are going to be making sure you have what? An egalitarian relationship where there is equality with the therapist and the client. You're going to be exploring the socio-cultural context where you're going to be looking through some of those gender roles and even deeper into those gender role analysis, as well as those power analysis that might come up. Empowerment is huge. It is so huge. We need to be doing what? Reframing some of that resistance that your client may have, or some of those historical oppressions that now currently has them trying to survive, right? The anger part, the frustration part needs to be validated, because to a feminist therapist, there is a reason for it, and some of it has to do with inequality. You have to pay attention to that. You are going to be what? Encouraging that client's agency and their voice. I cannot say that enough to all of my ladies. You have a voice. Advocacy. That therapist is always going to teach advocacy. That therapist is going to advocate for you. Personal growth into what? A more broader change. Ladies, it starts with us. And I'm going to say it again, the feminist era, the feminist movement gave that to us. It is ours. We are taking it back. Keep that in mind. Okay, this sums up your feminist theory. Oh my God, I actually enjoyed talking about this as much as I enjoyed learning about it. It really does put a lot of things into perspective. I am going to take another deeper dive into a lot of those foundational thinkers such as Sojourner Truth, especially the ones that come with the civil rights movement. I would love to read about that. And also Nina Simone, love her. If you have listened to her before, she was a huge part of the civil rights movement when it came to her music that she sung. So I wonder if she was also like one of the part of the feminist movement as well, with her music that she spoke when it came to Black women during the civil rights era. So again, keep in mind, egalitarian relationships, the social cultural context that we have, it's that gender analysis that we take with our clients, that's that advocacy that we want for our clients, especially when it comes to their own personal voice, when it becomes a broader change. We have a voice, ladies, and I want us to continue to use it. If you have found any error in this video, please let me know. This was me studying this for the first time. I studied it for a week in order for me to speak very freely about it. So if you find any error in it, please let me know. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, as always, please leave me a comment, leave me a message, send me a text message, and I will be there to support you. I will talk to you all soon.